We shall continue with the next speaker. Christopher Groome came all the way from UK, is that correct? How do you feel there in UK? I mean, you kind of exited or not? We don't understand this.
I was born there.
You were born there?
Yes.
It's kind of okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just making fun, because we here really don't understand what's happening in Britain now.
Oh, well, I'm not talking about Brexit.
Oh, you're not? All right, you said it's building smart, so it's not really about politics.
Yeah. As far as we're concerned, we're part of the world, and it's a global place.
Yeah.
And not just the European Union, but actually I'm going to be talking about what's going on in Asia and what's going on in America. So it's a much bigger field.
Sounds good.
Yep.
All right,
okay.
the floor is yours.
Thank you very much.
Which mic is it for you better?
I'll use this one.
All right.
Yep. Well, good morning, everybody. Can I say how much I have enjoyed being here already? I think the touch of having classical music to start off this conference is brilliant and has put us all in a very good mood. So let me say who I am and why I've got to where I am at the moment. I'm not a construction person at all. I started life as an economist. I went into food processing industry, and I've worked variously in automotives and electronics and printing, as well as construction. So I bring a perspective from other industries into construction. And I was quite shocked by some of the things that I found out. For example, construction productivity over the last 20 years has hardly moved at all, whereas manufacturing productivity has shot up. If you look, I did a study on what people were doing on site, and only 38% of time on site was productive. 62% was not productive. And we're facing a shortage of skilled people. So we actually have a problem in delivering the products because we haven't got enough people. And that's true right across the world. And we have a problem of turning an on-site production industry into a manufacturing and controlled environment. So that's the context that I come to this industry in and come to talk to you today. I'm going to talk about these three important questions. Why are open, universal digital standards important? Why is Building Smart important for open standards? And why Latvia should get involved? Now, another statistic which I want to put before you, and to put this in context, is I did a study about 20 years ago of things that went wrong in construction. And half of them were due to incomplete or inaccurate information. So information is terribly important. And if you link that with the figures about the productive hours on site, you can see why things go wrong and why people find that the sequencing of the work on site, something is not delivered on time, the people who have got to do the job before the one that I do haven't arrived. So that makes a lot of sense, that information is at the heart of efficiency in construction. And this is where BIM comes in. It's a new way of managing information. So that's where we start. And let's see what open standards do for us. Now, the thing about open standards is not that you can buy something and it will talk to something else. It actually changes the whole way that the industry works. It's BIM in a box, we call it in the UK. You can't buy a software package and just do it, because actually it means that the industry has got to change and the people in it have got to change. And that is a major transformation job. And my former chairman in the UK said that technology was actually only 20% of the job. People change was 40%, process change 40%. So we're facing a major upheaval. Our customers are expecting us to do the job better, and we're ripe as an industry for disruptive change. And either you take the lead, or you follow, or you will be crushed. Change is inevitable, and it will run over you if you don't go with it. Now, the benefits of standards. The Industrial Revolution was based on standards. Standards for things like screw sizes, quite mundane things. And standards are just as important for information in the construction industry. And they will save time and money on design, on construction, and above all, on operation. A lot of what we talk about in the industry is about ourselves, what we as architects can do, what we as engineers can do, what contractors can do, what suppliers can do. But actually, business is about enabling our customers to do their job better. And that's where BIM really does come into its own. If you take an airport, for example, or a hospital, how the hospital or airport works is at the heart of what we are modeling. And we put the design and construction on top of that. This is terribly important, because the people who are at the heart of what we're trying to do are our customers, the users of buildings and infrastructure. And the people that we should be focusing on are our customers. Now, I was involved in something called teamwork early in 2000, 2001, 2002 in London, where we had a demonstration of what the potential of BIM was. And I remember in 2001, we had the head teacher of a secondary school in London who wanted to have a new building. And the idea of this was to have a really focused effort on design for the use of the school. And the head teacher came in at 9:30 on Monday, and he gave a briefing of what he was looking for from the team. And we had a big team of people to convert his ideas into a design by Thursday. That's Monday to Thursday. And he said, for the first time talking to the construction industry, he felt that he was in charge. Usually the sort of products that we put in front of our customers, 2D drawings and elevations and so on, the customers don't understand. And this is where BIM really does come into its own. So we make better and more informed decisions, and the customers feel that they're getting a better deal. Now, what are we offering them? Well, first of all, we're offering them open, shareable, machine-readable data. And good, up-to-date and accurate information is essential. A lot of the mistakes that happen that disrupt construction and cost a lot of money are because people are working from different databases. And having an up-to-date and accurate database is absolutely essential. And we have good evidence that this is actually the key to improving the industry. But it does mean we've got to work very differently. So good data requires open standards so that we can exchange information between the various participants in the process. Now, what does buildingSMART do, and what is our relevance to all of this? Well, buildingSMART is about enabling the full benefits from digital ways of working in the built asset industry. So we're talking about buildings, schools, hospitals, housing. We're talking about railways, roads, all the things that we do as an industry. And what we're trying to do is build a standards body of reference. We want vibrant chapters around the world in the countries, and we want our quality mark in demand. This is how we see measuring success. And if we look at the right-hand side, at the wheel, we have a definition of need, developing solutions, deploying the solutions. And the users come in at the beginning, defining the need, and they come at the end of the process of deploying the solutions. And we have two programs in there, what we call the user program, which is the users defining what they're looking for in terms of standards, and the standards program itself, which is the way the information moves through our standard creating system. So it's an iterative process. And if you think about it, we got a phrase, build before you build. And the idea is a fairly simple idea, which they used for years in the aerospace industry and the automotive industry, which is where I first came across it, where you actually do build, design and build the car or the aeroplane in the computer. And you remember we used to have test pilots who took a plane out for its first flight and hoped that it would work. Now we find out whether it will work in the computer, and we need to adopt that idea in the construction industry. Now, unlike many standards organizations, buildingSMART is a bottom-up organization. We have chapters around the world, and these are their flags. And most of the important countries in Europe are members. Canada and the United States are members from Asia, from America. We haven't moved into South America yet, but we are going to do that. And in Asia, we have China, Japan, Korea, Singapore and Hong Kong, and Malaysia. So we're very well represented, and our population coverage is just having China gives us a quarter of the world's population. So, and buildingSMART International was created by the chapters. So it's taking the problems in local markets and articulating them to a collective activity to determine what standards are needed and to work those standards through as a cooperative effort between different countries. So it's a cooperative effort. Right, so the chapters and international have the same broad goal. And it's to increase our membership, to increase funding and increase activity. It's what we call growing the pie. So we have an aligned interest in developing and growing our activities. Now, we started off as a chapter-only organization. buildingSMART International is a not-for-profit organization which is owned by the chapters. But more recently, we've had a possibility of people coming in as members directly into International, and we have an arrangement whereby if they come into International, they can pay a composite fee which covers their chapter membership fee as well. And here are some of the big people who are part of us. The strategic members who provide a strategic advisory council, ARUP, a UK engineering firm, HOK, American architect, and we've got Nemetschek Group, who are based in Germany, but also operate worldwide. We have Autodesk, who I think you will all know. And we have, as a contractor, the Kojima Corporation from Japan. And then we've got international members, Trimble, Dassault System, and Co-Builder. And then we have some standard members, which is where we start to get some users, for example, governments involved. Trafikverket is a Swedish road and transport authority. Schiphol Airport, which you've already heard about, who are organizing our airport activities. Ferrovial, Spanish major contractor and owner of construction assets, including airports. And then we've got Rijkswaterstaat, which is the civil engineering side of the Dutch government, and is concerned not just with highways, but also, as Rob explained to you, the very vital dikes that are required to keep the sea out of Holland. And then there's Menschen Maschine, which is a German-based company. So we're building up a group of people who can take part in our standards development process. And these are people who are sponsoring projects at the moment. We see some of the same people there, but there are other people who are doing things and funding things or providing people to do things. We've got Katenda, who are a Norwegian library provider. I'm not going to go through all of these because we've got a bit of time to catch up, but there are a lot of people coming in, and I'm going to mention some more to do work with us. Now, it's very important if you're in the standards business that you have some good links. And the first one is that we have got a status liaison with ISO, the International Standards Organization, which is based in Switzerland. We've also got same status with CEN, the European Standards Organization, and with OGC, which is the Open Geospatial Consortium, which produces GIS standards. And clearly GIS standards and building standards fit closely together. We've never had these links, because certainly with infrastructure, then being able to locate where the infrastructure goes is terribly important. And we've got that link so we can work on projects together. On the right-hand side is another important aspect of what we do, which is national and client programs. Now, in the UK, we've got Digital Built Britain. We've got the EU BIM. There's the BIM Locket, which is the group that's trying to get government to adopt standards, these standards in the Netherlands. We've got the Plan Transition Numérique dans le Bâtiment in France. The French government has put up 23 million euros for a 5-year program of implementing BIM in France. So there's big money and big activity going into this. There are one or two more, but it gives you examples of what is happening. This is how we're structured. The chapters, as I said, own the organization, and they are all represented on an international council, which is sort of our shareholders, but we don't have shares. It's a not-for-profit organization. And they elect a board to run things during the year, because they only meet once a year. And we've got the Strategic Advisory Council, which is those guys that I showed you earlier. We've got a management executive, which does the day-to-day running of the organization. Now, we've got 3 core programs. I mentioned the users earlier, and the users have a big role at the beginning of the process in setting out where the standards need to be developed. We have the standards program, which is actually delivering the standards, and we have something called the compliance program. That's certification to make sure that what we set out to do happens and works. So they're the 3 work streams that we have. And if we just look a little more closely at these programs, user is about problem identification. So what we talk about in the user program is where are the pinch points, where are things going wrong in the industry where we need to improve communication. So that's problem identification and setting the agenda for the standards process. And then there's industry outreach, which is at the end of the process, promoting the standards to get software developers to adopt them and develop software that comply to the standards, and also to get people to demand the standards, users and various actors in the construction industry. The standards program itself is problem solving, is the approach that we're taking, and I'll show you the standards process in a minute. And compliance is testing and making sure that we have reliable and valued solutions to the problems. Right, let's just have a look in a bit more detail at what these programs consist of. We have user programs to start with, and this is really under development because users to start with weren't terribly interested, but they are getting more interested. And we have I just picked out 2 major user focuses. One is in France, which is BIM World, which is a way of shoaling large numbers of users together in events. They're also operating in Germany now, but they're based in France. And we've got a similar BIM forum in the United States, and we've recently changed our chapter hosting arrangements in the US because this organization has big reach, both in finding out what the problems are and in getting people to understand the need for revision of construction processes and adopting the standards that we are producing. So there's the BIM Forum there has a huge event and several smaller events every year. And there are other groups developing, so they're happening inside the chapters who are close to the industry in each country. When we look at the standards program, we have what we call rooms, not committees, rooms, and we deliberately changed the name to emphasize that room was a place where you came to get your problems solved and to talk to other people from around the world and from other companies. We have a building room, we have an infrastructure room, which I have to say has sort of taken over the organization because there are big things going on in the infrastructure room. Product room, which has our data dictionary activities in it, which I will come back to. We have a technical room, which is the sort of boiler house of the organization, and is minding the quality of the technical work and making sure that what is shared across different rooms is consistent. And we have a regulatory room, and that is about government activities in the context of building regulations and planning, and health and safety, and electronic code checking. And we've got two new rooms which have just started. One is the construction room, which is what sort of problems do contractors working on site have, and how can we develop BIM standards to help them. And the airport room, which is led by Schiphol, but includes several of the major airports around the world. And these are just starting their work right now. And then compliance activity. We've had for some time a certification system for software. It wasn't very good to start with, but it's improved greatly in our 2x3 certification. And we're just developing IFC4 certification at the moment. And this is to say, what can the software deliver for you, and what can't it deliver for you? We're just about to launch a people program. So this is to get consistent descriptions of people in various countries across the world, a BIM manager or BIM whatever it might be, that you know that you're getting the same skill set, whichever country you're working in. And then we have in mind to move on to processes and data models, but we haven't got that in our planning horizon yet. The standards program. Our chapters and our members provide standards committee membership, and they vote on crucial stages of development of the standards. We've got 26 activities. So when I talked about pinch points, that our users have identified 26 areas where we need standards to stop those mistakes happening that I talked about earlier. We have 10 final standards endorsed and one final technical report, because we can produce reports on as well as standards. There are 7 initiatives being worked on at the moment. There are 13 activities at standards proposal stage, 7 activities in development phase. We've got 2 strategic advisory council projects, and we've got specs. This is, perhaps you might know it better as a PAS, which is a sort of UK invention, that when somebody has done a body of work which is not ready to be adopted as a standard, but is worthy of consideration, and we need an input on it, then they're published as a spec. And we've got one is road, IFC road, which has been produced by Korea, and the other is IFC Rail, which has been produced by China. And I'll say a bit more about them. But I want to say something now about the data dictionary, because to my mind, that is the most important thing that we as an organization can do. Astonishingly, a simple thing like a door or a window means different things in different countries. And if we're to have international trade in construction, then we've got to make sure that when we call something a door, it is the same thing. Does it include the architectural ironmongery? Does it include the architrave? Amazingly, in different countries, it doesn't. And we have a huge number of components in the construction industry. And the idea is to develop a dictionary in which each of the products has a unique number and has a description which can be used around the world. And this would enable product manufacturers and library providers to do a much better job and make purchasing of and procurement of products and objects, the use of objects, much simpler. So linking the product and the design so that we can actually source a reservoir of information, knowing that we will get what we ask for. But it's a huge job and it needs support. I'm not going to say a lot about this, but this is our way of representing how the BSDD works and how it interacts with the IFCs, which are the sort of description of the process. And you'll see up there that we have some big contributors. The UK, with its Common Object Platform, and France. Now, I mentioned France putting in a lot of money with the French government, and a lot of that money is being spent on this activity. So that's a huge benefit to us. And then there are other people doing things as ourselves with the work we've done on the object library, called Data Dictionary Library. So, and there are other people who have their own private dictionaries, which they want to get into an international standard. Right, let's just sum up what the data dictionary is about. It's free access to read and manage data. So we're producing an openly available standard, free. Cost recovery is based on charges for uploading data or pay per click. And open status is enforced through license agreements. So this is the business model. And what we're looking for is support for investment to develop the services from governments, owners, vendors, and product manufacturers. It's a big ask, but the rewards from this will be huge. Just to show you, we have 2 summits a year, 2 standard summits. And we held the first one in Asia since we moved on to this new model of operation. And we had 165 people in Korea, which is a record for the number of attendances. So it just shows how this is growing and the momentum that's behind it. So I'm there, you can see that I was there. These people came from all over the world. So it's, the people really believe that this can change the industry. The airport and construction rooms, which I mentioned. Now, Schiphol Airport has its own list of problems. Rob's been heavily involved in developing this. And they thought, well, I'm probably Heathrow, Frankfurt, Incheon, and so on, probably have the same problems. And the answer is that they do. So it makes sense that they work together and reduce the cost of solving the problems by syndicating it between them. And Kojima, they're doing it much more on a supply chain basis, that they have a supply chain working with them, and all major contractors have that same supply chain problem, how they link the supply chain from an information point of view into their operations. So they've set the room up and they're inviting people to come in from other countries. Now, I said I'd mention again the 2 BSI specs. Yeah, almost there. China Rail BIM Alliance. China is amazing. China has had 70 people, 70, working on a complete set of standards for railway design and construction and operation. They have done in 2 years what we in the West, I think, would normally take 5 or 7 years to do. They don't lack people, they don't lack expertise. And they have placed that into buildingSMART for refinement and linking with other things. And the same is true of Korea, except they have taken 5 years about it, but they've done an amazing amount of work as well. And what we're going to do is work package 1, we're going to take these 2 specs and also the bridge one. There's an IFC bridge led by France, and we will make common elements between them fit, because at the moment they're not themselves interoperable. So we're going to work in work package 1 on making the common definitions work, and then work packages 2, 3 will actually develop the specific things like signaling for rail. As an example, they will develop those. And here is the signing, a group, different countries, working together on the bridge project. And you'll see the countries listed there. So it's a way of achieving more for less. And the certification I've already talked about. Latvian participation, growing the standards. More people that take part, the sooner we'll get to that right-hand position, not there. Let me just say one more thing and then I'll finish. It's your industry. Governments are actually very important in helping this to happen. Hence, several governments are participating in the programs. Government is a big construction owner in infrastructure and buildings. They regulate, set standards for health and safety, building regulations, and so on. And they invest a lot of money in it so they can dictate what happens. Users can define the detail, and the clients are part of the industry. The industry doesn't start with the architect or the consulting engineer, actually starts with a customer. And we need a close-knit client, user, and government community positioned to take part in international project teams and where international cooperation comes naturally. And buildingSMART is international, open, neutral, and not-for-profit. And one of the things I want to leave with you, several of our small country chapters have actually been the most effective. And the reason is, in Norway or in Finland, government departments there around the corner are the industry organizations. So they work closely together. In places like the United States and France and Germany and the UK, it's actually been much more difficult to shoal people together. So don't worry that you're small. You can probably take part in this and get a lot out of it. So thank you very much.